Hello, and welcome to Bla Bla Black Sheep, a weekly yarny podcast where I, Sarah Korth of SEK Handmade, answer your yarny questions. Welcome. I am so glad you're here. This is always a highlight of my week. I have so much fun with this podcast. So welcome if you are brand new, and thank you so much if you are returning. We're up to episode 22. So if you have not watched the other 21 episodes, go give them a watch. I love to put on a podcast like this when I am working, and then I love listening to the things in the background. I have several yarny podcasts. I've been a bit on the hunt for yarny podcasts to share with you guys, and I have found a few that I love. I've been having trouble finding people who are consistent. I found a couple podcasts that I'm like, oh, I really love this, and it'll be like they have 3 episodes from 3 years ago, and 1 episode from a year ago, and 1 episode from 6 months ago. And I'm like, I want something that's moving and grooving so that we can keep watching, not just watch once or twice. So I'm still on the hunt. I'll share those soon. So today I am wearing my Grand Arches, 2 of my Grand Arches patterns, my Grand Arches shawl, which I absolutely love. It's a nice open shawl. It's made in worsted weight yarn. I know a lot of my more recent shawls are fingering weight yarn, so this is a great one to pick up if you want to try a shawl, but you don't have or are a little timid about fingering weight yarn. It also has these, I have little extenders that are optional. It's a pretty traditional triangle shape, but these little extenders allow you to tie it differently, but also to give yourself some space around your neck. I love the idea of wearing a tank top and a shawl, but if it has to be tight around your neck, depending on the weather, it can be too hot. So I really enjoy having those little extenders on the shawl. I'd really like to make another one. I should do that. It's on my list. So many things to make, right? And then I also have my Grand Arches cuff, which is the same stitch pattern. Let me get closer. So same stitch pattern, and then it closes with fun little buttons, again, that go through the stitch pattern, so you don't have to make extra button holes, which I love. And I love a good, kind of chunky cuff that is not, isn't too heavy, which, crochet jewelry is perfect for being not too heavy. And then I love to use these as a shawl cuff too. You just wrap it around your shawl and kind of clip it in there, and then it holds your shawl in place and adds a little zhuzh to your shawl. Maybe I should make my next shawl to match the bracelet, because these don't exactly match, but I don't care because I love them. All right. And that's how I am. Let's talk about what's bringing me joy lately. Friends, it has started cooling off in the mornings. And I don't know if this is a holdover from living in Arizona for 8 years, but you could kind of chart, seasons are different in the desert, especially I've never lived in a high desert, but in the southern desert, seasons are just different. They aren't as distinct, and they aren't as, there aren't really 4 of them exactly. So, and maybe it was just because I didn't pay enough attention to the desert to notice the 4. Anyways, but you would heat up, and there would be a time in the summer where it never cooled down. You woke up at 6 o'clock in the morning and it was hot. And the way that you knew that the seasons were starting to change was when you'd wake up in the morning and it was actually kind of starting to cool off in the morning. And that was always the first indication that we're headed toward a season change. And so we are starting to have cool mornings here. And so I feel like we're like easing into the shift of seasons, not only in actual season, but in season of life. We're about to head back to school. I'm doing this weird thing that I know is very contradictory, where I'm loving that it's cold this morning, but we're hoping to go to the pool this afternoon for a last hurrah at the pool. It's closing this week. And so I'm loving the cool morning, but I hope it heats up enough to make the pool pleasant. So we shall see. Yeah, but I'm excited about the cool mornings. Oh, there was something else I was gonna say about this. I remember now. The school is not air conditioned, so it's time for it to start cooling down. So when all those poor little kids and big kids and teachers, let's be honest, head back to school, they won't be miserable in their classrooms by the afternoon. So fingers crossed that we continue this trend. It seems likely because that's how seasons work. So there you go. All right, small businesses. I'm gonna share my mug with you first. This is, you guys, I can only have so many mugs, but this is one of my most favorites. This was a custom order from Cheeky Ceramics. So Rin did the sheepies for me. And then I just gave her, I gave them colors that I liked, and they just went to town. And man, I mean, look at the detail. Can you see the detail in this portion where they like textured it? And then they just picked the best colors. Gorgeous on the inside and the outside. I cannot say enough good things about Rin's work. They've been making lots of, they've been doing art fairs, of course, in the summer, and then they have a booth at the farmer's market. So lots of production going on, and I've been watching the social medias, and oh my gosh, so many bowls and platters, and they're doing these mugs now. They have a bee one that I'm obsessed with, and then they have a sunflower one, and I'm not really a big sunflower person, but it's just so pretty. It's just so pretty. So I'll link all of their stuff below so that you can go check it out and enjoy a gorgeous mug, since frankly I'm running out of room in my cabinet. And I have at least two more. I have two more coming in from the art festivals I visited in Des Moines this summer. All right, speaking of the art festival in Des Moines, my earrings are from a new to me maker, but not new to my sister. This was one of the reasons we went, was because she loves this earring maker, and now I do too. Not only because she makes gorgeous earrings. Look at that. All those colors. I mean, it just goes just so perfectly with what I'm wearing. Fiddle Stitched is the company name. Dang if I can't remember the owner's name. I'm not gonna try. You know me and names. I'm not great with them. So I'm not gonna try. But I met the owner at the art festival, and she is hilarious and kind and just really wonderful. Her mom was there helping her with her booth, which I love. So go check out her earrings. They're super lightweight. They're super gorgeous. Highly recommend. Highly recommend. Ooh, I'm trying to, my camera's having a hard time with the light, I think. And so I'm trying to sit back a little bit so I don't like give you vertigo. We don't want that. Definitely don't want that. Wow, guys, I'm like moving and grooving this morning. Just a little update briefly about the fall mystery cowl. I have moved forward and it seems to be working. Woo! Fingers continue to be crossed for me because I'm really excited about this if it works. So, yeah, join my email list if you want like more updates and not to miss out, because that would be sad. It's gonna, not to pat myself on the back, but it's gonna be really cool and I'm very excited. Okay, I'm already ready for questions. How awesome is that? All right, let's do some questions then. Oh, if you want to ask a question, I should say, there's a link in the description box below. I call them the show notes to be fancy. And there's a form that you fill out. You literally just ask your question as long or as short as you want. I don't know if there's a limit to that. And then it puts it all in a spreadsheet for me, which is very helpful so that I can keep track of what I answered and what I haven't. If you've submitted a question and I haven't answered it yet, it's still there and I'll get to it. It's still there. So, 2 more questions today. Question number 1. All right. I love this one. It starts off with, "Oh my gauge, I'm so confused." You're not alone. Gauge is confusing. "Oh my gauge, I'm so confused. My pattern lists gauge as a 4x4 square, but I've heard that I'm not supposed to make a 4x4 square. What?" In all caps lock. "What size should I make my square? Why is it listed as 4x4 when I'm not supposed to do it 4x4? Help!" Okay. Yes, this is a great question. So let's break it down a little bit. Gauge is listed as 4x4 inches or 10x10 centimeters as a standard. And I will say it is not always listed as 4x4 or 10x10. Sometimes I'm just going to use inches because I don't math well and I'm American, so we're weird and we use inches. It's not always listed as 4x4. Sometimes it's listed as 2x2. Every once in a while, it's listed as 1x1, and those are mostly going to be for projects that are smaller. And so, like, if you're working like a skinny scarf, and your scarf is only like 3 inches wide, making a 4-inch swatch maybe isn't the most helpful. Like, it's not really necessary. So I have patterns that have a 2x2 gauge listed. I'm trying to think. I don't know off the top of my head, but like I could see my cup cozies being listed as a 2x2 because like a cup cozy isn't very big. So that's a standard. That's why it's listed that way. Yeah. I'm not gonna say. I was like, I'm gonna say more, and then I was like, no, I'm not. Okay, so it's listed as 4x4 or 2x2 or 10x10 centimeters as the standard for how gauge is written. Now, are you supposed to make a 4x4 square? No. Okay. I'm again going to link to all of my gauge videos. I have a whole playlist. This is a very in-depth topic, but let's touch on this real quick. You know me in quick. Relative quickness to Sarah. So there are several reasons you should not make a 4x4 swatch. Your aim is not to make exactly a 4x4 swatch. I think that's a huge misconception. I've had lots of testers that do that. They'll send me, a picture and they've got their little square and their tape measure laid across it and like, it's exactly 4 inches. I'm good to go. This is also part of the reason why people get really frustrated by gauge, because when they achieve that 4x4 square, they're like, success! And it's not success. So, because here's the thing, a designer should be measuring in a big swatch or on their finished project, which, depending on what it is going to be bigger. And so the designer didn't say this makes a 4x4 square. That's not what they did. They said, when I measure, and a lot of times they'll do it with a gauge ruler. Let me go grab one real quick. This is one of those tools that I thought was superfluous for a long time. And then I got one. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. They're not that expensive. I don't know why I held out for so long. So gauge ruler has two sides with measurements on it of 4x4 or 10x10. And then the goal is to make your swatch bigger and then lay this in the center of your gauge swatch. The truth is, the edges of your swatch are not true to gauge. So you don't want to be measuring your edges. So you want your gauge swatch to be bigger than your 4x4 so that you're not measuring any of your edges. Not your side edges, not your top edge or your bottom edge. I know it seems like a waste of time sometimes, but the more true your gauge swatch is, the more true your project will be. This is not a fail-safe. You need to continue to check gauge as you work on a project, especially something you want to fit really well or that you're coming close on yardage of yarn. But you get closer to a true gauge when you make a larger gauge swatch and then you measure your gauge off that. Now, what size gauge swatch do you make? I usually shoot for at least a 6x6. That gives me at least an inch on each side. Sometimes I'm generous and get bigger than that. If you are a larger, the bigger the project you're going to make, I guess I should say, because you don't have to be a larger person to be making a bigger project, right? The larger the project that you are making, the bigger your gauge swatch I would encourage, because the more it will behave like the larger amount of fabric you're going to make. So if you're going to make a sweater and you are, on the larger end of the sweater sizes, it would not hurt to make a good sized gauge swatch. And then we can get into this more another time, but before you measure your gauge, you need to do to your swatch what you're going to do to your sweater. Because here's the thing, friends. You can make, and we've talked about this with shawls in a previous episode, right? You can make an awesome gauge swatch and you can be spot on with gauge, and then you can block it and it can grow monstrously. And you don't know that until you block it. So I encourage you to block your gauge swatch. I don't know if you can hear that. Apparently something real funny's going on out there though. Kids, we're not back to school yet. Kids are still home. We're gonna have a couple more episodes with the kids home. Anyways, okay, so I'm gonna look at this one more time and make sure I have answered all the questions. I think you did. Yay! If you have more gauge questions, come give them an ask. I'm happy to help. I know I've talked about this before, but I was the person who was scared to ask. I didn't want to seem like I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know what I was doing. I don't know why I didn't want to seem like I didn't know what I was doing. But there are people who have knowledge from experience, from already messing up the sweater gauge, that want to help you so you don't have to mess up the sweater gauge. So ask away. I'm happy to share my knowledge. Don't be fearful. And it's anonymous, so I won't even know if it's you. And you can help other people who might have the same question. I'm off my soapbox. Question number 2. I was recently at a social gathering and I had brought a project to work on while I chatted with people. While many of the people seemed to be fine with me having my project with me and chatted with me about my project, one person was quite offended and accused me of being rude. Rude. Is it rude to bring a project along to a social gathering? What do you do? All right. So, several thoughts on this. No, I don't think it's rude. I have a project with me almost always. Sometimes I work on it. Sometimes I don't work on it. It's always there just in case, I feel like. But I often have a project with me, and I don't feel that it's rude. If I had friends who knit and crochet come to my house, and they, even if it was a big social gathering that wasn't just knitters and crocheters, and they wanted to knit or crochet, I wouldn't think it's rude. I think several, I don't know that that's true, so I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to make up stories that I don't know are for sure. But I think there are going to be some people that when you're in mixed company will think that that's rude. And I think that's for a couple reasons. A, I think old social norms. It used to be the case that like you weren't paying attention unless you were like looking people in the eye. And I think that's something I hope that we're growing out of. We were just talking to my oldest yesterday about something a little more serious that made him uncomfortable. And when he is uncomfortable, he doesn't want to look at you. I think that's normal. And he likes to be doing things with his hands. So we've been encouraging him to get something more specific to do with his hands, because if he doesn't, then he's just like touching all the things and messing with stuff and driving me bonkers. But if he's got like a little fidget spinner or something he can do with his hands, then he needs that to focus and pay attention and get out some of his anxiety. But he's not being rude. So I feel like, hopefully, as a broader society, and I don't want to lump people. I don't know who the person was who said you were being rude, but I would say, generally speaking, it's older generations where those social norms, they aren't as aware of the shift and they haven't adjusted to them, or they are aware of the shift and they're just like over there like rolling their eyes like kids these days. So here's my deal. I think if it's your own social gathering, you do you. It's your party, and you'll crochet if you want to. Date myself there. Skating rink songs. But it's your party. If you wanna do some yarny work while you are chatting with people and being social, it's fine. I think another reason that people are a little put off by it is because if you are either A, super new to the craft, or B, don't do the craft, it looks so complicated that you cannot fathom how someone could be involved actively in a conversation and be doing knitting or crochet. So, I mean, it's kind of like a compliment that you're like so amazing that they can't possibly fathom how you could be doing both. And you are amazing. Congratulations. I teach at my local yarn shop, and while I'm teaching, a lot of times what we call yarny social time is going on. And so there's a whole group of other crafters who are out there knitting, crocheting, spinning yarn while I'm teaching the class. And when I teach the Learn to Crochet class, so often those students are just in awe of being able to have that skill down so well that you can chat and do it at the same time, because they are like, I mean, they're just beginning. So of course they're super focused on it. So I think it's hard for people to really fathom, like, how can you do both? But you all know you can. So I think that's another reason why people might be offended. My guidelines on this are a couple things. One, be respectful of the host or hostess. Are we still doing gendered host and hostess things? I don't know. Anyways, whoever invited you to the party, be respectful of them. So you can just say to them, hey, do you mind if I sit and crochet? And they may say, no, absolutely not, I don't care. Or they might say, I'd rather you not. And whatever they say, that's what you respect. The most important person is the person whose gathering it is, in my opinion. If their great aunt, nope. I was going to say if their great aunt Janine is offended, but you know great aunt Janine probably also crochets, so she's not going to be offended. If Uncle Franklin, I don't know where I'm coming up with these names, is like, young lady, that's rude that you're crocheting in the middle of this party. Like, on Uncle Franklin. I don't do that. Just smile and... But if someone else who's attending the party is offended, but the person who's throwing the party is not, then I say, let it roll right off your back. So I think that's the most important. I lost my... And then, you got to kind of know yourself too. I think there are a lot of us who, just like my son, are actually more comfortable in social situations where you can not be making as much eye contact, and maybe awkward silences aren't as awkward when you're doing something with your hands, and that's fine and normal. And so you got to know yourself. We had lots of people come to visit when I was first staying with my dad after my mom passed away. And I was like, but I felt that it was rude to crochet while we were chatting with these people. And I finally got to the point where I just told my dad and my brother and sister, like, I have to. This is what keeps me grounded and calm. And I have not crocheted in like weeks. And it is affecting my mental health. And so I'd just sit in the corner. I would chit chat. I wasn't doing most of the talking anyways. And so I'd sit there and I'd listen and, actively participate in the conversation, but I would crochet. And as far as I know, nobody complained. So, you need to know yourself. And maybe, if that's something that's truly important to you, is being able to have the support of your yarn craft in social situations. And there are certain friends who aren't supportive of that, even after you explain to them, like, here is why I do it. I'm not ignoring you. I can participate in a conversation in a social setting and do my project. And they're like, no, it's still rude. Maybe you just don't spend as much time with that person. Because you deserve to be respected. Your thoughts and feelings deserve as much respect as their thoughts and feelings. And so, maybe you can come to an agreement on it, and maybe the agreement is that you just agree to spend a little less time with them. So you got to do what's good for you. And those are my 2 cents on that. So thank you so much to our question askers. I, of course, don't know who you are because it's all anonymous, but I appreciate you sending in those questions. They were helpful and thoughtful, and so thank you so much. Thank you all for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed joining in on the conversation here. As always, I'm not the end all be all. If you have a gauge experience that you'd like to share about, write about it in the comments. If you have a social situation that you were in where you had your project out and someone, either it was a positive experience or a negative experience, share about it. We would love to hear. And then check out the comments and chit chat with each other. It's a great way to get to know some other yarny people. I don't think I've actually said on here, I've started an Instagram just for Bla Bla Black Sheep. I'm currently in the process of catching up to the current episode, but if you want to follow along there, I'd love it and appreciate it. I'd also love and appreciate that if you enjoyed this, if you'd share it with a friend. It means so much to me that you spread the word. And then you can also like and subscribe. So thanks for being amazing, and happy crafting.